Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Emily Warter, and I am with Purdue University's Krannert School of Management. Thank you so much for joining us today as we talk about 5 key tips to your MBA success, focusing on Adcom secrets. I know that the admissions committee can be a scary group of individuals for some prospective students, so I want to help put away some of the myths that are associated with the admissions committee and help you feel successful as you go through your MBA search. I know that many of you are in different stages of the MBA application process, and so as we get to the question and answer section, I will answer any question as best I can on a generic level because I know that you're applying to multiple schools, but feel free to ask me anything about the admissions committee or what it takes to have a good application or how to identify fit. Whatever is really your question in the MBA process, I want to help you. And again, maybe the MBA isn't the option you want to take, but maybe you're looking for a specialty master's degree. We can talk about that too. So thanks again so much for joining me. I look forward to chatting with you for the next hour. Our agenda for today is going to be as outlined below. If there are questions, please feel free to enter them at any time, and we will have a Q&A session at the end. Our friends at Beat the GMAT will help facilitate that session. We will do our best to answer all questions entered. There might be some that are similar based, so we will cluster those together to afford everyone an opportunity to have their questions answered. And again, we'll be answering questions on a generic level. I do not want to get into program specifics as much because I don't want to provide you information that might not be as pertinent to another program that you're applying to. So again, I'm Emily Warter. I'm currently the Assistant Director of Recruiting for the MBA and Master's Programs Office at the Krannert School of Management here at Purdue University. I also sit on the Admissions Committee and serve as an Admissions Officer. The language that all schools use are going to be kind of different, but I am an admissions counselor, and I am a recruiter. I help with the decisions for our building our classes. I am what you call a double boilermaker. I have my undergraduate degree from Purdue, as well as I'm working on my master's degree here at the university. So I'm a very proud boilermaker. And as you can see, my favorite part of the admissions process is the first day of orientation. I love when I actually get to bring a class together and see all the applications, all the paper files turn into real people. So that's my favorite thing. And seeing everyone at the start of their adventure is always it's a real prideful moment for me. My favorite colors are black and gold. As you can tell, I'm a real proud boilermaker. So just that's a little bit about me. If you have questions, don't forget to ask. For those of you who might not be as familiar with Purdue, we are located in West Lafayette, Indiana, which is 2 hours south of Chicago and 1 hour north of Indianapolis. For some of you, you might be looking for more of an urban environment, but for others, you want perhaps a Big Ten Research One university that is focused on creating a community and an excellent academic experience. We might be a school for you. Having access to Chicago and Indianapolis will fulfill your need of restaurants and shopping and cultural activities, transportation, airports that maybe we aren't able to connect with here in West Lafayette. But when you are here in Lafayette, it is a very supportive environment for your learning, and there are tons of activities to take a part in when you're not studying or preparing for case competitions or the job search. Purdue is internationally recognized for our academic programs across the school. We are well known for our colleges of engineering, Polytechnic University, agriculture, and science. You'll also find that our liberal arts school is well known for the communications program. Purdue is recognized wherever you go. Our research is always being featured in various aspects, and it's a fun environment. We encourage our students to participate in research if that's an area of interest for them, possibly in an entrepreneurial setting through our research centers that we have here on campus. We have partnerships with major organizations in terms of nonprofits and corporate entities that will allow you to enhance your experience. You may have heard that our university president, President Mitch Daniels, has presented to the board of directors that our tuition does not increase. We're on our 4th year of a tuition freeze, which means we're incredibly affordable. We are ranked 3rd on ROI for affordability when it comes to getting your MBA. We believe that you should have a quality education without breaking your bank. Our curriculum is designed for you here at Krannert. We have the MBA core, which is quantitative and analytically focused, but then you have the 14 option areas where you can specialize to meet your individual needs. We do not want to outline the curriculum in such a way that it prevents you from growing in the direction that you need to develop. We teach in a case-based method. We assign students to teams, and we focus a lot on experiential learning. So how can you take your classroom experience and apply it outside the classroom? Our extensive alumni network are always wanting to connect with Krannert students. In the fall, there are alumni in the building every day wanting to recruit Krannert students, but also engage with them in other capacities. So that's just a little bit about Purdue University's Krannert School of Management. What is an admissions committee? Admissions committee will vary by all programs. What different schools in which you are looking to apply. They may include staff from the admissions office, recruiters, student services, academic advisors, but it also might include alumni relations staff, career services staff, those individuals who will work with you as you're a student. So it has a lot of different perspectives on the staff side. Faculty also participate. The faculty will offer their insights to your ability to perform in the classroom and also your ability to connect with projects that they're working on and partnerships that they have. Some programs also have alumni participate in the process where they may have a Skype call with an alum in your to learn more about how they use their MBA and where they are now. Perhaps they will, depending on where you're living, they may host alumni events for prospective students where the alumni might do a little bit of a round robin or speed dating type format to interview you and offer their feedback. And of course, some programs do include current students. They want to make sure that you're able to connect with the students that will be you'll be in the classroom with. Now, as I mentioned, every program and every school creates their admissions committee slightly different. Overall, though, everyone has the best interest of you as the applicant. We want an applicant who will be successful in a program, and we want to make sure that our program meets your needs and you meet our needs as a program. So the overall goal of the admissions committee is the same across programs and schools. The players just might be slightly different. And it's not something that you would need to really worry about directly. Usually if you're having an individual interview with an alum or a faculty member, you know that well in advance. So the first interaction will be with a recruiter or an admissions counselor. And again, the language that each school and program uses is slightly different. So part of my job is to ensure that we help you understand program fit and knowledge about our program. There's lots of MBA options out there. So how do you select the right one? We'll help you we'll provide you information so you can make your decision tree to find the one that's best for you. And sometimes you might have very specific goals that you want to accomplish. So will we meet those goals? We'll help you honestly answer those questions. Or if you're a little more broad in general, we might help you be able to focus and find out really where you want to go. And of course, there's always the application questions. How do you submit? When are deadlines? We'll always communicate those with you because depending on the number of schools you're applying to, it can get a little confusing. But we'll talk about that a little bit later. Process updates. That is something that is one of the hardest parts, I believe, for you as an applicant to an MBA program or actually any graduate school program is the waiting game. When are you going to be able to hear next on the steps? So you can work with your recruiter or your admissions counselor to have to be kept up to date and abreast. And then we'll also, admissions committee, do the application review and then obviously make all decisions. So application review can mean that we look at your file from the creation, and we holistically review your scores, your GMAT score, your GPA. We also look at your work history and your essays. The committee will meet and discuss and then make recommendations for decisions. So the first tip that we have today is research, research, research. The number one thing is that you identify what you are looking for in a program. We ask that you evaluate your current situation, maybe think about what your career environment is. Is this the time for you to pursue your MBA? Everybody has a different point in their career where they might have the ability to leave and take that next step to further their skill set. So really look at your current career situation and see if now is the time for you to be pursuing that. Are you a competitive candidate in the career environment? Are you having promotions pass you by because maybe you don't have those skills? It's really hard to look at yourself and think, maybe I need more, and will the MBA get me there? Have those tough conversations with yourself. There's other points to identify in your self-discovery of, understanding what you're looking for a program, because your best friend, your sibling, or the person sitting next to you at work, you all might have the same goal of getting an MBA, but you want different things out of them. So be mindful of what you're looking for. The next thing to think about when you're in your research is, what do you provide the program? If they are a program that wants specific GMAT scores, or has a format that is not your preferred learning style, it might not be one that you want to apply to. Even though it's a school that has a great reputation, or has a strong alumni network, the companies that you want to work for recruit there, you have to be honest with yourself to know if you're going to be successful within the program. Do you provide the program the things that they need? The other thing is, when you graduate and you have that diploma, are you going to walk around in a t-shirt with your school's name on your chest and be proud to be an alum? Are you going to help recruit on behalf of that school? If there is something that's giving you vibes in your research process, then maybe that's not the best school for you. But that's why we want you to research. Now, as you're doing all this research and thinking and having conversations with individuals, the most important thing you're going to want to do is create a spreadsheet to organize and record your interactions with schools. It doesn't have to be anything elaborate with pivot tables, but I would list every program you're interested in and then how often you interact with them, and track the information of when due dates are, when decisions are, when does the program start. Kind of build a database spreadsheet type model that collects everything you need to know. So if you bump into an alum and shares an experience with you, it'd be great to jot that down, because that alum might reach back to the admissions office and say, hey, I ran into John Purdue, had a great conversation with him, I think he could be a really good candidate for the program. So in your interaction then in the future with an admissions counselor or a recruiter, and they say, oh, you met John Purdue, or you met one of our alums, you don't want to draw a blank. You want to be able to say, yeah, I had a great conversation. We bumped into each other at the coffee shop. I didn't know that they went to Purdue. We had a nice conversation. We want you to have the best experience, but as the process happens, you need to track what you have going on. It'll also help you organize things when it comes time to, like I mentioned, the application deadlines and the fees and things as well. So if you haven't already started the spreadsheet, I suggest that you do so now. It is one of those things that you're going to want to check often, especially anytime before you contact your school. It might seem like it's been ages since you've contacted a school, but really it's been a week. So that will help you keep things in perspective. Our second tip is really understand what the application process is like. The first thing you need to do is read their website. All schools have very specific and detailed information about the application process on their website. I would not recommend calling an office and being like, can you tell me about your application process? They're going to refer you to the website, because that's where all consistent information is provided. Look at the website, take the information that you need to put into your spreadsheet in there, and if you still have questions, perhaps something's worded a little funny, sometimes there are errors on websites, that's when you can communicate with the admissions counselors. Apply early. We always want you to apply when your application is the strongest, when you have the GMAT score that you're looking for, when you have made a good career plan, when you've identified that this is the right time. But always consider applying early. Not just for us because we want to see how applications are coming in, but for you as the candidate. As the candidate, you're going to need time to look and make good decisions. So if you apply early, you have the likelihood of having higher ability for scholarship dollars perhaps, but then you know where your decisions are coming. So if you apply to, let's say, 7 schools and you receive 3 favorable offers of admission, then you can focus your search on those 3 schools and figuring out which one makes the most sense. You can look at things like cost of living, career placement, the faculty and education that you'll receive. So you're narrowing your search by communicating, by applying early rather, you have more time to make the best decision for you. And the third tip in the application process is clear communication if you have questions. Oftentimes people will shoot us quick emails from their phone because maybe they're thinking of something from their commute. I'm very guilty of this. I'm at a traffic light or something and I send a quick email to one of my coworkers and I start the conversation in the middle and as opposed to the beginning because that's where I am. I need to catch them up. So if you need to contact your recruiters or admissions counselors, be very clear and specific on the questions that you're asking and always include your full contact information, your program of interest, and your intended start date. That might seem kind of silly to include your program of interest, but some schools, it's very possible that if you just said MBA, it could be the full-time MBA, the part-time MBA, the evening MBA, or the weekend MBA, or the executive MBA. And it could be, are you looking to start this fall, or are you looking to start a year from now or 2, so then they can make sure that they're providing information to you. We recently just went through an application change. So how we were communicating with students who wanted to start in August of 15 is going to be different than how we're communicating for students who want to start in August of 2016 because of the application change. So we want to make sure we're giving you the best accurate information, but depending on where you are in the cycle, things might be different. So that's why we always ask for your intended start date. And it is always possible that somebody has a very similar name to yours, so we want to make sure that we're communicating, again, if you're looking for the MBA program and you have a fairly common name like a John Smith, it is possible that we could have a John Smith in one of our specialty master's programs as well. Our third tip is engage. For me, this is probably my favorite and most important. We want you to connect with us as a program. We want to know that we're not just someplace you applied to because it sounded like an okay thing to do. We want to know that you genuinely want to be a part of our program. So connect with staff and faculty. If you have questions, ask them. Be sure you review the websites in advance to make sure that silly questions or simple questions are already answered. But if you want to know more about maybe the Career Services Department and how they support students and what kind of recruiters are coming in, you can ask your recruiter or admissions counselor to match you with somebody from that area. In addition, if you have a specific faculty or that you would like to research under or learn more from, or perhaps there's a concentration or option area of study that really interests you, but you're not exactly sure if you fully understand what that means, or how can you tie things together, such as maybe a finance concentration with a marketing concentration, because those are both of interest for you. Talk to the faculty member and the staff on how to do that. That's why we're here. When you connect with current students, the admissions team can match you with somebody who's similar to you. So let's say you come from a similar industry, maybe a certain geographic point, maybe you went to the same undergraduate institution. They can share with you more about how they adjusted based on those similar needs and how they gained the best from their experience. Most websites from programs will also list mentors or student ambassadors. Feel free to contact them as well. When you're connecting with alumni, they're interested in seeing how you interact outside of the classroom. So what they'll do is, if you're at, maybe we host Purdue alumni events at various cities, and we invite prospective students. So when you encounter an alum of Purdue or Krannert, what our alumni would expect is you introduce yourself as a prospective applicant and try to gain as much as you can information from them about their experience. Let them talk and drive the conversation. They'll then want to hear, after they explain their side, they'll want to hear more about you. Some alums are more question-based driven and tailor their answers to you. But remember, it's just a conversation. As you're engaging with the multiple stakeholders, as I mentioned above, remember to always be courteous and respectful of time. Sometimes, and it is a very challenging thing, I might be on the road for 5 days and email's intermittent. And so if you send me a question, I'll try to get back to you as quickly as I can, but it might take me a day or two to do so. So please understand that. And sometimes when you're working with alumni, they get pulled into projects in their professional setting, and you know, they forget to email you again for like a week or so because they were unexpectedly told to travel out of the country. So don't take it personal. Just realize that it's a time issue, and they'll get back to you. What I mean by do not people hop is, let's use the current students for example. If you go to a program's website and they list, let's say, 10 students who might be interested in helping you, don't contact all 10. Contact one and let them know that, like, you know, you want more information. And if you don't gel or mesh with that person, you can always contact another. But say, I reached out originally to John Purdue, and he provided me some really great information. I'm interested in learning, maybe from your perspective, what you think about X, Y, and Z. Let them know that you've connected. The same thing for an admissions office. We've had several students who went to our staff directory and emailed everybody on the staff directory within a few days of each other, and it created quite the confusion on our end because we weren't sure what was going on. The student just wanted information. They were really excited, but you need to channel that excitement into the appropriate areas. So we want you to connect with people. Just don't connect with everybody. Like I said, if you're not having a good experience with somebody, reach out to another person. Just don't reach out to everybody. And you know, as simple as it sounds, every interaction leaves an impression. So make sure that you are putting your best foot forward every time that you interact with a staff member, current student, alumni, or faculty member. Well, my numbers are off. I apologize. Tip number 4. Essays are not dissertations. What we mean by that is, for some of our students, prospective students in general, they're very concerned by the essays. This is not your life's work. It's not going to be published. It's just a conversation that you're having with admissions. So we want to make sure that your essay matches your application. Sometimes essay topics are very similar between schools. So students might take 2 or 3 schools and tailor one essay to generally answer those schools. Just make sure that you list, if you're saying, I'm very excited by the opportunity to be a part of the Krannert School of Management MBA program, that you're sending that essay to Krannert and not to another school. It happens. We try to overlook it, but we want to see your attention to detail too. In your essays, quotes are great, but we only need one. Sometimes people use quotes to kind of fill their essay, and that's great that the quote has inspired you and provided you some direction of thought, but we want to hear from you. So the next step is in your own voice. We are aware that there are coaches who can help you create the best essay. But the best essay is really one that comes from you and with your voice. Because when we do an interview with you, if your tones feel differently or your words feel differently, we're gonna want to know more. This is a great time for you to be able to explain your hiccups as well. And the best person who can talk about hiccups is you. By hiccups, I mean perhaps you had a little bit of a bad semester in undergrad and your GPA took a dip, or maybe you had a time of unemployment because you were laid off in one capacity and then you decided to explore another avenue. Hiccups are not bad things, but feel free to address them, and you don't have to give us a big story. Simply, let's use the low GPA as an example. You could say, my junior year, I experienced a hiccup in my transcript or a dip in my GPA because I was focusing more on the career search and not the academics. My course load wasn't of interest to me, so I wasn't attending class as much. I have learned my lesson, and these are things that I have done to counteract that. As you'll see, in my senior year, my GPA returned back to a consistent mark for my other times in school. That's all you need to say. That's what we look for. We want you to proofread your essays and have a trusted, honest source, a friend, a coworker, provide you feedback. And listen to that feedback. They're not looking to make you feel bad about what you wrote. They just want you to be successful. So a neutral party looking at your essays is going to provide you feedback that might be comparable to what I would provide you in the application discussion, because neutral parties. And how do admissions committee use essays? We want to see how you organize your thoughts, can you communicate clearly, and are you able to connect with others? I know it's 500 words or less, and how are you supposed to connect with somebody at 500 words or less? We can tell. We can tell that you have a start, middle, and end. Everything flows through. You answered the question, but you left me wanting a little bit more. That's what we're looking for. Okay, well, I'll give you guys a bonus tip. Apparently I was very excited last night when I was working on this. So tip number 4.1 is interviews are conversations. Take a deep breath. We always encourage prospective students to just breathe before you get on your interview or before you begin. As you can see, we know you're nervous. It's okay. We anticipate a little bit of nerves because we know you want to do your best. Just take a deep breath and give us your best shot. Always wear professional dress. Even if you're in a Skype interview or another technology medium, be in professional dress because it is business school. We want to see how you relate to others in that environment. I know it can be a pain to put on a necktie or you know, to wear a suit for maybe a half-hour conversation, but do it. Even if your interviewer is in more of a business casual look, always dress business professional. Most schools, depending on where you're based, will do some sort of Skype call or, as I mentioned, another technology for their interview. Practice. If you don't have a Skype seems to be a preferred method. So if you don't have a Skype account already, get one created and practice with friends. Make sure your technology works, the environment in which you're going to have your interview is quiet, the internet is working well there, and you've scheduled plenty of time so you're comfortable. Practice with a friend. Practice face-to-face with somebody and have them ask you some oddball, curveball questions, just so you're used to it. Some students, maybe they've been working for, let's say, 5 to 7 years and they've been on a promotion track. They might not have had to really interview in a while. So it's okay to be nervous. Just practice. That's what we look for. Now, I know this is a hard question and some people do not feel comfortable asking for information to be repeated, especially on a technology-based interview such as Skype. It's okay. We understand that perhaps technology delays happen so you don't get the full question. Even in face-to-face interviews, it's okay to ask them to ask the question again to make sure that you heard it correctly, especially as the interviews get going. So don't miss out on an opportunity because you didn't hear clearly what they were asking for. And then one of our final things is just be patient. The application process, waiting for a decision and things like that it's a long one, even if it's real short. So as anxious as you are for your decision, we're anxious to build our class. We're going to communicate as soon as we know something with you. We will want you to have all the information necessary to make the best decision, but we'll also want you to communicate with us if you're looking to go to another program. We encourage you to stay engaged during the process. After you've submitted your application, your essays have been reviewed, you've had your interview, the admissions committee meets, we sit down, we review your file, we talk about how you would be a good fit for our program and how our program would benefit you. We'll talk about career potential. We talk about the gifts that you're going to bring to our program by maybe your leadership, your work experience, your academic ability. Once we kind of figure out how you overall fit, we'll communicate that decision to you. Typically, in the interview, the interviewer, the admissions officer, will let you know when a decision may be coming. Your first question should never be in the interview, when will I find out my decision? If you're more concerned about the decision and less concerned about having this time dedicated to you with an admissions officer, that is going to rob you of potentially learning more about the program to make the best decision. It's okay to ask if they don't provide you that information as you close out your interview, but don't make it your first question. And additionally, I mentioned stay engaged. If you apply early, let's say in a fall or early winter round, it's possible that the school is going to host maybe virtual webinars, on-campus visits, things like that, or roadshow events. So let's say we're hosting an event out in your community. Please join us. We want you to connect with us. The more you build the connection with us as a program, you're going to feel more successful in the orientation in the first few weeks of classes. During that time, most schools, after a favorable admission has been determined, will invite you to different activities and have current students reach out to you. Crickets or radio silence is the worst thing that can happen. We wonder if you're coming to the program. You might miss out on key information, so keep some level of engagement, especially if you're moving or if the email address that you use is not one that you want to continue to use as you enroll in our program. Communicate that with us and we'll update our records so you get everything that you need. So here's my contact information. If you're interested in learning more about Krannert School, please feel free to contact me. After we go through questions with the GMAT staff, if there's something that you thought of later, I'd be happy to have you reach out to me, and I'll provide you honest information. Now, if you ask me program specifics, I will do my best to answer them for my. Answer them for my program, rather. Excuse me, but I won't be able to say at a different school how their admissions committee looks. Like I said, everything's all different. Another way to stay engaged for wherever schools you're looking, you can use the Beat the GMAT tracker and watch list system that is on the account, but you can also use social media. Social media is a great way to connect quickly and simply with a university, and as their MBA program is providing information out, you'll have that at your fingertips. So at this time, I'm able to answer any questions that you might have about admissions committee or in general MBA programs. I'm here for you. So thank you so much for your time, and I look forward to answering your questions. Okay, so the first question that we have is, are there any standout points or traits that B schools look for in an essay? I would say that most schools want to see some sort of demonstrated leadership. Now, depending on where you are in your current career stage, you might not have led a team or been a project manager, and that's okay. But perhaps you were on a committee and you had a section of a project and you managed that aspect. We want to hear that. Or if you are involved in extracurricular activities, maybe you're a volunteer, let us know that you have time management skills to be successful in your career, as well as participate in other organizations. The things that we're going to look for in the essays, like I mentioned, being able to communicate, but also how you're going to be able to manage your experience. So we look for people who can be leaders. That doesn't always mean being the forefront or the president of every single student organization. Silent leaders and motivators are absolutely critical to any organization. And so if you are a silent leader, if you're one of those people who kind of sees how processes go and then jumps in, or doesn't want to be the forefront, but you love implementing different facets of projects, communicate that to us. So those would be a few tips on what to look for with standout traits. Thanks for that question. That's a good one. The next question is, how do you treat applicants who are unemployed or in between jobs? That's a great question, too. Apologies, I took a sip of water. We understand that people are going to be in between jobs. Perhaps you were on a length of contract, and that contract expired, and you were looking for your next opportunity, and it took a little longer than what you anticipated. We understand that the economic situation has created opportunities for some organizations to have to minimize their workforce, and you might have been part of a RIF or a layoff. You can communicate that to us without providing us a lot of information. It's an easy way to say, you know, I'm currently in between positions because I was looking for the next opportunity, and my current company was not able to provide that to me. You don't have to overshare, but just acknowledge it. Make sure that you kind of acknowledge it. And for some people, they just, maybe they were in a bad situation and they needed to get out and they wanted to spend some time doing some self-discovery, like I mentioned earlier. So they spent some time maybe preparing for the GMAT or traveling, different things like that. So we understand things like that can happen. Just be sure you communicate them with us. But we do not look at candidates who are unemployed with an unfavorable viewpoint. We just want to understand why, because ultimately you're coming to business school to be a great employee, a great contributor to society, or an entrepreneur, or something along those lines. So we want to understand why right now you're not currently working, so that we can make sure that we provide you maybe with additional services to help you in your employment searches. Thanks again for that question. Another question we have is, will you please give us some insights into how an engineering background profile weighs against a profile like finance consulting, which has more MBA relevance? When we're creating a class, we do not want all of the same type of student in the class. Some of the people in our class that's going to be starting in August have engineering backgrounds. Some have business backgrounds. Some have humanities or liberal arts backgrounds. Some have been working for 2 years. Some have been working for 10 years. We want all of the different experiences to come together in the classroom and in the community to provide you with the best learning experience. Because when you graduate and go on to your next profession and you're working in teams, the teams are going to be diverse. We'll use a manufacturing company as an example. So let's say there's a new product line. You're going to have somebody from engineering, marketing, possibly human resources if it is going to require a major influx of staffing. You'll have somebody from the finance team, and you're going to have somebody you know, from supply chain and outside vendors. By having the MBA, you'll be able to talk with each of those individuals and understand their concerns for the project to be successful for the manufacturing company. So as an engineer with an MBA, you're wearing two hats that can really support that project. But if you already have some business background, you might need more, or maybe you're a little rusty, or maybe the finance that you took in undergrad was more, you want more corporate finance added to it. That's something to look at. Oftentimes, individuals will add to their experience with information that they're already comfortable in, but also push themselves to information that it is new to them to provide them more experience. So we look at everybody as the individual and how they can be a good blend into the class. As I mentioned, we don't want everybody to have the same background because it's not going to be the best learning environment. This is a good question too. Any tips on we could offer for choosing or preparing recommenders? Letters of recommendation are part of most schools' application process. What I usually recommend is that think about, let's say you need 2 letters of recommendation. I would put together a list of maybe 6, 8 individuals that you've worked with either on a project, a former supervisor, a faculty member, depending on how long you've been out of school, somebody who can really speak to your skill set that's not a close family member or friend. I would put together that list of, you know, 6, 8, 10, and think about, you know, what they could offer and share about you. As you contact that list, I would send them an email or have a conversation that you're interested in going back to graduate school to earn your MBA. I would provide them a synopsis of what you've currently been doing, because they know what you're doing, but maybe they don't know all the proper words or some of the cool stuff that you're doing. So give them a reminder, and then I would also attach or provide them with a resume so they can see your progression. If it was a former supervisor, you might want to jog their memory on a project that you worked with them on and providing the status for that as well. What I would do is at that initial conversation is say, I would appreciate your support in my MBA application process. Would you be willing to be a recommender for me? Give them the opportunity to say yes or no, and outline in that initial conversation email what the expectations are, what deadlines are, things like that, so they can plan ahead. Give them, I would do this at least 4 weeks before you were planning on submitting. And then give them some time to reply back. If they reply yes and you have your 2 people, great. And then even if you have all 6 who say they do that, you can say thank you so much for your offer. As I'm looking forward on the process, I learn more, I will let you know. Thank you. And then remind those that you're actually going to select that these are the deadlines and this is how they need to complete your letter of recommendation. Is it an online upload? Is it a physical letter that they have to mail? Things like that. And then remind them of the deadline and check in with them. Don't be annoying. Space everything out throughout your time, but just talk with them and let them know. And it's okay for you to say, I understand that you might have taken on a new role and then you're not able to be a recommendation for me, excuse me. And so always give them the opportunity to opt out. But that's a good question as well. Thank you. Any tips for reducing essay word count? I'm a talker. I always overexceed the word count when it comes to essays. I would create an outline with your start, middle, and end, and provide a couple sentences for each one. I don't need a full background of where you've been because I have your resume. So your resume is going to tell me about you. So your essay can provide me information on 1 or 2 incidences, whatever the essay is, integrity or your statement of purpose. Realize that your resume is going to give me a really good snapshot so you don't need to replicate words. So I would start with an outline, come up with the the key points that you want to address, and then slowly build them out. Depending on the application system that they use, most will let you exceed the word count a little bit. So let's say, for example, it's a 500-word essay. If you're at 515 words, don't worry about it. Go ahead and submit it. If you're at 700 words, get out your red pen and start removing some information. This is where that feedback conversation with your trusted source will be helpful too. But like I said, if it's a few words over, 25 max, you're okay to go ahead and submit it. We understand. There's a question of, do we accept GRE for admission to Krannert? We do accept the GRE and the GMAT for admission to our MBA programs. We understand, for referencing an earlier question, perhaps you're an engineering student and you were torn between a Master's of Engineering or the MBA. You might have already taken the GRE. Your scores are still valid. We would accept that as well. Okay, this question says, if any significant positive accomplishments or developments occur between submitting the application and the interview round results, what's the best way to bring that to the committee's notice? This is something that happens pretty regularly. Let's say you've applied in January and then you received a promotion in March or something because of your hard work, or you were selected to lead a project. This is where the engagement factor that happens with the admissions committee as well as your counselor that's a great way to kind of let them know. You could say, for example, email your admissions counselor, or most schools have an maybe like application at Krannert email. You could just say, I would like to update the committee on some recent developments, just as you have worded here, that might be of interest as you're reviewing my file, and then provide just a little synopsis of the cool things that you have going on. We love hearing that. We love hearing that you're being recognized for your efforts. So it is perfectly appropriate and encouraged to, as those things are happening, just send a small, quick little email and say, I would like this to be added to my application file for consideration. And we'll do that. Thanks for that question. Another question we have is it okay to have a recommender who has been an alum of the school to which I'm applying? It is okay to have Krannert MBA students provide letters of recommendation for other prospective MBA students. The one thing that we ask, just as we do for all recommenders, is that they're able to speak to your skills. If you've had a couple conversations with an alum, probably not somebody that you would want to ask, but if you happen to have been working for a few years alongside a Boilermaker and you think that they would be a good recommender for you, ask them. That's great. We do not provide additional weight to the letters of recommendation if they are an alum. That's not going to give you any bonus points, but it is always nice to hear from our alums. Maybe we can reconnect with them as well too. So if you have somebody who happens to be an alum, great. If you have somebody who's not an alum, that's great too. Another question is, if I had a non-traditional work experience and do not know much about the business world, should I address these hiccups to the admissions committee? How important is this factor considered? From personal experience, I can tell you my husband has gone the non-traditional work route and is now with a large pharmaceutical company, but they liked him because of his non-traditional work route. The way that he's totally switched industries, and it worked out for him. So what I would do is talk about what you've been doing and how you want to use this experience that you've had in the past with an MBA education for future activities. And don't discount work that you've had. some people say, well, I've just been in a customer service role. Well, customer service roles mean that you know how to handle pressure situations, interactions with individuals, and you know how to communicate. Those are all skills that are important in the MBA program, as well as in the recruiting process for full-time MBA positions. So I would definitely talk about that maybe in your statement of purpose. This is the background that I've had. I've been thinking about an MBA because of XYZ, and this is where it's going to take me. And how important is the factor when considered? We review everyone's work experience, and it doesn't have, just because you worked for a Fortune, 100 company isn't going to provide different experience. So again, back to the engineering example, some individuals come to us as a researcher, but they know that the skills that they have as a researcher are going to be valuable to companies, but they know the MBA with the research ability is going to be even more beneficial. So they don't have real business world experience. They spend a lot of time in the lab, but adding the business education to it is going to make them a very valuable candidate. You're coming here to learn and add more, so we expect you to be at different stages of your business knowledge. Another question is, any advice you could offer on overcoming application weaknesses, such as a low GMAT, GPA, or very little work experience? As I mentioned, hiccups happen, right? So if you have a lower GPA, I would address that in maybe your optional essay or in your interview, depending on what format, depending on what the school is looking for, it makes the most sense. If you have demonstrated some lower characteristics in multiple categories, for you as the applicant, I would wonder if this school is going to be the best fit for you, because just because you make it through the application phase, that means you still have to be able to perform in the classroom. So match what you have. I'm not a great test taker. I am not a very good standardized test taker. The GMAT test makes me nervous because it's a standardized test, right? It's a test that you have to take. You give me the ability to present or do an essay and I'm good to go, but tests in general make me nervous. We understand that, so you can talk a little bit about that. If you've taken the GMAT multiple times, and most students have, and it is encouraged, and we see some levels of progression, we'll understand that you're doing your best. Just realize that there are more applicants out there who have a possible, as using your words, an application weakness than those who have applications with extremely high marks across the board, right? So you might have a really high GMAT but minimal work experience. Well, you can offer some things to us. You might have a lot of work experience but a low GMAT because you haven't had to study in a while. You're still going to contribute. So don't rule yourself out because of what you're identifying as a potential weakness, but just be prepared to address them. And that's where, again, practicing with the individual is going to be good too. And our dear friends at Beat the GMAT are reminding us that we just have a few more minutes, so thank you so much, Jennifer, for your help in moderating this event. If there's other questions that we can discuss, okay, here's another one. As a former MBA student, is there anything you know now that you wish you had known when you were going through the application process? There's a lot. But the first thing is, the people who are reviewing your application are real people too. We genuinely care about your experience, and we genuinely care about what you're going to go through as a student, because you're an application right now, you're a prospective student, and we've hopefully built some relationships with you. You're going to be a student and an alum longer. So we want to make sure that that time with you as a student and your alumni experience is rich and rewarding, and so we want to make sure it's the best fit. So it's an application, your resume, some essays, and a conversation. Take it seriously, but remember, real people are the ones on the other side of the table reviewing you or interviewing you and hopefully making the best fit for you. So I've had a hiccup on my transcript. I had a slight gap in between employment because I was in a consulting role on a contract, and it just ended that we ended the project ahead of deadline, and my next project had a little bit of time in there. Those things happen, and it's okay. So just be prepared to talk about things and realize that it's not an interrogation, it's an interview, but really it's a conversation because we want to get to know you. Okay, and this is going to be our last question. Is there a negative connotation from Adcom perspective for candidates applying to do their second MBA? How often do such candidates come across based on your experience? That's a good question. I'm going back to think of app files and applicants that we've had. So some students might have an MBA from an international program and they want a domestic MBA experience. Some individuals might have had an MBA that's focused on a specific area, and I'm just going to say maybe an MBA focusing on human resources, but they realize that they need more corporate finance, or they want maybe more of an analytical approach so they could see where an additional MBA would be beneficial. Just be prepared to explain why you're looking for a second Master's of Business Administration degree. It might be one of those cases where the program that you were in had an exchange program that no longer is valid, but you want to have you want to participate in exchange programs, so you want to go through another experience, or you're looking for a more diverse campus experience. So I can't really pull off the top of my head the number of times I've had candidates doing a second MBA. I've had multiple candidates with a master's degree either in business or another, usually a STEM or science-based background coming for an MBA, but just be prepared to talk about it. And you know what's best for you, and you know what will make the most sense. So if you had an MBA experience your first round and you feel now is the time to add to it, perhaps you got your MBA immediately following your first MBA at graduation, you've been working for a few years and you now need additional skill set, you can talk about that. That's okay. So thanks for all these great questions. I really appreciate that. I've enjoyed talking with you, and hopefully, some of the insights I provided you will help you in your MBA search. If you have any questions about Purdue or the Krannert School of Management, please continue to reach out to me. Thanks again to my friends at Beat the GMAT for their help with today, and have a great day, everyone, and boiler up.